You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. You wanted it, you got it. A radio program that helps teach you options trading inside and out, basic to complex. This is Options Bootcamp. Whether you want to learn how to protect your portfolio, generate income, or even become a master of volatility, the Options Bootcamp drill instructors will break it all down for you. Now, let's get you into peak options trading shape. Here are your Options Bootcamp drill instructors.
All right, everybody, that music means it is time once again for Options Bootcamp, the program you guys can't get enough of, and we're happy to keep cranking out for you here week after week on the old Options Insider Radio Network. My name is Mark Longo. I will be one of your drill instructors here on the old proving ground that is the Options Bootcamp program. And make sure for you guys out there, I see the numbers, I see you guys flocking to the show. I'm glad you're liking and glad it gives you some insight, some analysis, some education in these otherwise troubled times. If you like what you hear, keep those reviews coming in your platform of choice to help new people continue to discover. I don't care where you listen. Could be iTunes, could be Google Podcasts, could be YouTube, Podbean, wherever you get the program. Make sure you leave a review so other folks can continue to enjoy the program. And, of course, keep those questions coming. We do love to hear from you guys. We devote an entire episode to you guys these days. So make sure you keep those questions coming because I know you have a lot of them. So keep them coming in. Joining me to help wade through your questions and your analysis and all the other fun stuff going on in the world of options today is the black-hatted one himself, my fellow Options Bootcamp drill instructor, Mr. Daniel Passarelli III, Esquire, a.k.a. the founder of Market Taker Mentoring. Mr. P, welcome back to the program, sir.
Hey, Mark, it is so good to be back.
All right, I like it. I'm glad to be back as well. So without further ado, let's get right on into a little bit of the old options drills.
In boots. Time for our favorite pastime, option drills. We're going to take the strategies learned during the show and teach you how they can be employed to achieve a specific objective. Do you hear me?
All right, everybody, welcome to the Options Drills, the portion of the program where we break down exactly what the heck is going on in the world of options and how you guys can use these products in your own portfolio. Some tips, some techniques, some ideas, some suggestions for you. And today's suggestion actually came from the black-hatted one himself, Mr. P. It's a topic we've touched on a little bit in the past, but haven't really done a little bit of a deeper dive into it, so it's interesting to come back to it, particularly in these troubled times. Mr. P, it is trader psychology. So we'll get to all that. Before we get to that really quickly, obviously a lot's been popping off in the market since you and I have chatted and gathered here together last on the program. So let's start there. What are your thoughts on what we've been seeing from an overall volume and volatility and market perspective? Then we'll get into our topic du jour, sir.
You know, so we work with like hundreds of students, you know, and I will tell you what, I don't remember if I said this on the show in the past, but when COVID started, I was like, oh no, well, you know, all our students are going to get scared and quit and take their money out of the market and kind of hibernate. And it just didn't happen. They're facing it really bravely. And the only way you can do that is with the right psychology behind you, you know, and I'm really proud of them. And I'd like to kind of share some of their stories and some of the things that has helped them for our listeners.
All right, so let's do it. This is your suggestion, so I'll let you take the lead there, sir. Obviously, this is a topic that is highly subjective, that is fraught with all sorts of issues, and is very contentious to a lot of people, because a lot of people view things very differently. You know, two people can come into a room and look at a position, and one has a higher risk tolerance than the other, and they say, hey, you know, I think this position is fine, and the other guy thinks you should take it off right now. This is terrible. What are you doing? So there's a lot of different roads we can go, but let's start with kind of your overall thoughts and how you guys approach psychology over there at Market Taker, sir.
You know, there's a lot of things. One, I would say that one really is attitude is everything. I was talking with, who was I talking with about this? I know I was talking about this with kind of a little bit different, but we took a family trip to Las Vegas. It was my son's 21st birthday, and you know, it was his first time gambling, at least in a casino. And I was telling him, you know, there's sort of a zen to it, because it was a little bit weird with COVID going on. You know, like the casinos were doing actually a really great job enforcing social distancing, but some of them, you know, they did a great job, and I'm happy for that. But they maybe could have handled it a little better. You know, where like I was standing behind him at the blackjack table because there was only one seat, you know, available, so I couldn't sit. You know, there were 3 seats, and he took the last one. And I'm trying to give him advice, and they're like, "Back up! You got to stay 6 feet away." And you know, like the dealers are like yelling at me and yelling at people sitting at the table, and it's like, oh my God, it's like, Sam, come on, we got to go, because there's a zen to it, to gambling and to trading. You know, there's a lot of commonalities there, and I feel like if you're in a bad mood, if you're not in the right frame of mind, if you're scared, if you're greedy, it can really mess you up. You know, I feel like you've got to feel good. You've got to be like confident and fearless without being naive, you know?
I like that. The father-son bonding lesson that is when to split aces, right? And all the other good stuff that goes on. The many teaching moments out there. But let's get into some of the nitty-gritty. I think you highlight some interesting stuff. You know, like you, for example, I think you like to throw this quote around. It's an interesting one, I think, which is your first loss is your best loss. What do you mean by that, sir?
Yeah, you know, nobody likes losing money, but that's part of trading. You know, like you don't make money on every single trade. I can remember when I was a clerk on the floor of at this point it was the Chicago Board of Trade before the CME, before CME bought them. And I was a clerk, and I was actually a clerk for a long time, like 3.5, 4 years, something like that. And about 2 or 3 years in, I was like, oh man, this sucks. Like, am I going to get a shot here or what? You know, should I go and do something else with my life? And I went around and I asked some of the traders that I interacted with on a daily basis, like, you know, is it worth it? Should I keep trying? You know, what does it take to make it as a trader? And I will never forget the one thing this one guy said. I said, what does it take to make it as a trader? And he said, well, you've got to be really good at losing money. And I was just like, what are you talking about? You know, I don't want to be a trader to lose money. Like, that's the opposite. You don't know. I don't know. You're pulling my chain here. I don't know what's going on, but thanks, but no thanks. And then I don't really know how long it was after that I really realized what he meant. I don't remember if I thought about it and figured it out a day later or if it took me years, but there's something really serious to that. You know, when trades go against you, like that's really what determines whether you're a good trader or not. Like, anybody can put on a trade and luck out and have it go their way and make money. Like, that's so easy. But when it goes against you, how you handle that? Do you take a small loss now? Do you start out with a risk management plan where you're going to use a stop, or you're going to use like some other methodology to stop the bleeding and make your losses really small and controlled? Or are you going to cowboy it and just see what happens and hope for the best? Pray that it'll turn around because you know it will. It's so overextended, and you know, you start talking your book, as they say, just like thinking the market will do something because you're wishing the market will do something. So yeah, your first loss is your best loss. I really like to pass that one along.
I've said that many times on the network as well. Not the first loss thing, but the fact that that's where the rubber meets the road for good traders is how you deal with losses. You're right. Anyone can go out there and put on a position. They could buy calls, let the dice ride. Oh, it worked out. Or pick a stock. That doesn't. I mean, there's skill to that, obviously, but the true trading comes in is how you deal with your losses. How do you mitigate them? Do you adjust? Do you roll? Do you close it out? How do you keep those losses from overwhelming you? How do you deal with it psychologically? It's hard to be told in stark, completely black and white terms, you have lost, you are a loser, because your P&L is negative. That's a hard thing for people to wrap their heads around. And so that's that definitely, when people ask me these types of questions, that's where I come first and foremost, is to learn how to lose, because that's, and how to hopefully prevent that from happening in the future. Because that is lesson and indeed job number one. All right, your next nugget here, Dan, is confidence versus statistics. What do you mean by that, sir?
Yeah, it kind of goes back to that Zen thing I was talking about. Like, it's very important to approach the market with a level of confidence, but not naivete. Oh man, I'm reading this really great book, The Biggest Bluff, I think it's called, by Maria Konnikova. So interesting. She learns how to play. She was like a PhD, like in psychology, like social psychology, I think it is. And one day, basically, she decides she's going to be a poker player, having never played a hand of poker in her life. And she enlists Eric Seidel as a coach. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. I don't watch a lot of ESPN or anything, but Eric Seidel, who won the World Series poker a few times, and very good, confident in his abilities, I'm sure. But one of the things that he would like to say is, how did he put it? Less knowing, more inquiry. Less knowing, more inquiry. Sometimes I'll come across traders, and as a matter of fact, there was a clerk that I worked with on the trading floor when I was trading. He clerked for the DPM in my pit. And he's like, comes up to me one day talking about one of the stocks that I trade. And he's like, Pass, look at this chart. Oh, Pass, you got to look at this. Yeah, this stock's definitely going up. Obviously, it's definitely going up. And I was just like, what are you talking about? I don't care what the chart says. Nothing is definite. Trading is about statistics. It's about playing the odds and understanding what those odds are and what those odds mean. You have to have confidence in yourself and your abilities, but realizing that you don't know what's going to happen. We're trading is managing uncertainty, being confident that you can do a good job managing uncertainty, but playing these odds associated with uncertainty.
You touched on this as well a little bit, but the notion of attitude when it comes to trading, how you approach it is obviously critical. You put it here in your approach, psychology, attitude is everything, sir. What's the right attitude in your viewpoint for becoming a successful trader?
Yeah, if you go down to the trading floor now, you just basically hear a bunch of computers whizzing around. But, back when we were there, I would say that the typical trader was more fit than a typical person, not like they're all like muscle guys or anything like that, but traders would exercise more than a typical person, I think, which kind of helps not just your body, but your mind and your spirits, helps you with that positive attitude. I can't say for myself that traders tend to eat right, because I sure always don't, but I go in spurts. Definitely not getting rest. Like a lot of traders I know sure don't take care of themselves in that way. In fact, I think I'm just going down a wrong path altogether. But these things that are positive, these things that can have a positive impact on your life, whatever those things might be, exercise, eating right, getting rest, meditating, reading, stimulating the mind, or just getting into that Zen moment, is really, really important. Attitude really is everything. I mean, you can be of mediocre intelligence to be a successful trader. I know a whole bunch of them. Probably I'm one of them. But, the attitude, to me, that is the absolute biggest part. That is the absolute biggest part for trading.
It's funny you talked about healthy living. When I think back to my days on the floor of the SIBO, healthy living is not the first word I use to describe that lifestyle down there.
Yeah, I'm not sure where I was going with that one.
Most of those guys I could think of probably lived a lifespan that could be counted in on one hand for a lot of them out there. It was not exactly conducive to healthy living, but it was conducive to keeping you awake and functional for the hours that the floor was open. And I guess that to them was all that mattered out there. And you also mentioned in one of your other bullet points when dealing with trader psychology, Dan, is an important one, which is overcoming fear and greed. So walk us through what your steps are. What is your approach to overcome that pretty large obstacle for a lot of people out there?
Yeah, when we're talking about psychology, what is the enemy? I mean, okay, bad attitude. Yeah, okay, definitely, right. But the two biggest things that can creep into a trader's mind that can just poison the well are the two emotions of fear and greed. I mean, pretty much any other emotion, you can function as a trader pretty well, Anger, I know I broke a whole bunch of those phones that sat in the pits down when I was on the trading floors, that one was never a problem. Frustration, you have frustrating times, there's all those things, but fear and greed, those can be really dangerous because the fear can prevent you from taking the actions that you need to take in order to make money. I mean, if you don't trade because you're too scared, you're not going to make money. It's the only way it happens. And greed, that's the other one. And Mark, you and I talked a gazillion times about why having a plan is so important. And greed screws up that plan. Or if you don't have a plan, greed takes over like a weed in your garden, like weeds in your garden. Greed makes you overextend yourself, searching for more and more profits, and then a lot of the times the market just turns back around and all those profits get erased. You're trying to squeeze out an extra nickel and you lose 50 cents. Or, with the losses too, we kind of talked about that already. When things go against you, I don't want to lose money. I want to make money. It's all about making that money. I'm just gonna hold on to this because I can't lose. I need it. It's just not the right attitude, and those are your biggest enemies: fear and greed. Terrible.
Dan, I have a few extra nuggets I'm going to add on here to our psychology discussion. I'd be curious to get your thoughts on these as well. These are ways that I found over years of people, inquiring to us and through my own trading career to help make it easier to approach the psychological aspect of trading and perhaps ease the psychological burden. Trading is a heavy burden at the end of the day, so there are some ways you can make that a little bit easier on yourself and probably your loved ones as well. First off, Dan touched on this before. We touched on this many times on this show and other shows on the network. It's go into your trading with some sort of plan. Establish a plan at the outset. I want to achieve X. I think this is the best way to do it. I'm going to buy this vertical, for example, and if it goes to this level, I'm going to take it off. If it goes against me this much, I am also going to take that off. And you stick to that plan. That's the first and easiest way to really ease the psychological burden on you, because when things start going against you, that's when the psychological impact really starts to grow and the strain. And if you haven't established this at the outset, that's what can lead to a lot of other psychological problems. The fear, as Dan mentioned, maybe the greed, if it's going for you. These are all things that could start to overwhelm your better instincts, your understanding of the marketplace. And so I've lost track, listeners, of how many people have written to us over the last 13 plus years saying, hey, I had this one trade and it started going against me. And then I added this and I did this and I did that. And now I have this Franken monstrosity. What do you think? It happens all the time. And it's always because they didn't have a plan in place at the outset. So develop that plan. We talked many different ways about how and some rules of thumbs you can use for developing those plans. Obviously, it varies depending on the market, the level of volatility, what type of trade you're trying to do. Are you premium harvesting? Are you premium buying? Are you looking to speculate, looking to hedge? There's a lot of different rules of thumb to use in different scenarios. I encourage you, again, if you haven't done so, listen to our archives, check out some of those shows we've done to help you establish those rules of thumb. If you have questions about specific rules of thumb, send those in. We're happy to answer those as well. But establish those ahead of time. That will go a long way towards easing your psychological burden. Dan, would you concur with that, sir?
Yeah, man. A plan is your friend, man. It's just not possible at all to make money in the long run as an option trader if you're not trading with a plan. Oh, man. Yeah. I mean, if someone was to ask me for one bit of advice, that would be it. And I've said this to some of my students too. Some of them laugh at me. It doesn't even have to be a good plan. It just has to be a plan. Really.
What did Hannibal say in the old A-Team? I love it when a plan comes together. But my second addendum here is kind of a corollary to the first one out there, whereas if you have a plan, it makes the second one pretty much a non-entity. You don't really have to worry about it. But if you're not comfortable with your plan maybe, or maybe you don't have one, then the second one becomes problematic, which is don't go crazy with the adjustments. And again, I've mentioned before, I've seen this many times, people write into us, I had this one clear idea when I started this trade, and then I've morphed it through adjustments into this weird 50-leg monstrosity that makes no sense anymore. Adjustments, you can really dig yourself a hole with those. If you have a trade that goes against you, first off, if you have your plan, you know when you want to close it out or not. So that's your first step to making the psychological burden and the psychological obstacle a little bit lower, a little bit easier to overcome. And if you think for some reason maybe the underlying assumptions you had going into it have changed, you can of course close it out, or maybe you can do an adjustment. And that's where you really need to limit yourself. I like to go with pretty much one adjustment. If you do one adjustment, that could be rolling down to a different strike. That could be maybe adding some other leg to your spread, depending on what type of trade you have on. Taking off a leg, maybe that's not working for you, adding something else on. But one adjustment, and that's pretty much it. If it keeps going against you, now at that point, you're pretty much just denying the inevitable at that point. And so just take it off at that point. So number 2, to ease psychological burden, is don't go crazy with adjustments, one and done. Dan, are you on board with that? What's your rule of thumb when it comes to adjustments?
Mark, I would say the best adjustments are the ones that actually are part of your plan. Like when it all comes down to it, if you're really approaching this the right way, the market kind of can't surprise you, and to people who are newer to trading, that might sound crazy, but you more experienced people, I bet you know what I'm talking about. Like when the market was just like up and up and up and up since, the last election, and everything's sunshine and roses. And then this COVID thing happened. Like, did I know that was coming? No. Did I expect it to come? No. Was it extremely unlikely? Yeah. But I mean, Mark, you've been doing this a long time too. Like these black swan events, this crazy stuff happens time to time, and so like you should always appreciate that one of these things can happen. And that should be factored into what you think about the trade at the moment you're making that trade. So like, hey, if this goes against me, like put credit spread, for example. Hey, I made this put credit spread because there's a support line here. I sold the put just a little bit below support. If it violates that support line, hey, there's another support line, so I'll roll it down a couple strikes. Or no, there's no support. In fact, there's a gap to be filled and might keep going, so I'm just going to take it off. Like the adjustment can and probably should be part of your plan if you're making it.
And another one, this might be a little controversial to some of our listeners out there, but to ease your psychological burden, we're going to get into this more, I believe, on next episode. We have a listener question along these lines, but I recommend people keep their day job. And why I say that is because it sounds like the dream. I get it. You want to live to trade and do that at home and make your own hours. And it is great. I agree with you. Making your own hours, being your own boss, these are all great things. But when it comes to psychological strain, that's when people start to really go off the deep end. When now all of a sudden their trading is their full-time occupation, because now it's no longer a fun, interesting, enjoyable thing. Keep them entertained, keep them engaged, and hopefully help grow their assets over time. Instead, now it's their job. And anything, when it becomes your job, it becomes more rote, it becomes more routine, less enjoyable, and also, in this case, it becomes more important because it's your sole source of income. Remember, you have to factor in your regular draws to pay your rent or your mortgage or your car payment, whatever that is, into your trading profits, whereas before you kind of just took all your profits and kept baking them in to your account. So that's where we see a lot of people start to really have problems and issues. Their non-trading spouses, whoever it might be, start to have issues with them. Maybe they're not making as much money as they were. There's pressure on you to make more money, and that could lead to making trades that you're not comfortable with. You know, if you are in a situation where you think you can become a professional trader and that's what you want to do, hey, that's fine, but be cognizant of the fact that once you go down that road, the pressure on your trading is going to increase. So make sure you understand that going in. Dan, have you seen that? You've counseled a lot of people who I'm sure have become semi-pro, if not pro traders on their own and retail accounts. Have you seen that as a result, that psychological burden tends to increase dramatically?
I don't know. I mean, yeah. Well, first of all, I'll say yes, it certainly can. And I have come across people like at trade shows and such who maybe weren't our students. And yeah, like you've got to have certain things in order to make trading your job. You've got to have a big enough account because, like you referenced, Mark, like you're taking a draw. Like, you know, if you're starting with a $40,000 account and you're taking a draw every month, I mean, that's going to be tough. But, you know, you also have to be prepared. You have to really know what you're doing. And it is a possible thing, but you've got to take your time getting there. I mean, some of our students who joined us for like one-on-one coaching where we can really work together with people on a plan and how to make something like this happen, we've definitely trained some to become either actual professional traders and work for a firm or retail traders who are effectively professional traders because they're, you know, doing just like you're saying. They have no other job. They make enough money to take a draw and sustain themselves. So it can happen, but, you know, take your time and make sure you're doing it right.
That's why I made that one towards the end of my list. Because, A, it is controversial. It's not for everyone. And some people, that is their goal. I understand that. I don't want to discourage them. But I also realize that comes with a whole helping of psychological burdens that you didn't have before. So when we're talking purely about the psychological impact, for a lot of you out there, it may be healthier to keep the day job. You're not as reliant on trading for your income. Hopefully it's a job you enjoy. And then you can augment that. Hopefully it allows you to trade at your office. That'd be nice. Or wherever you work. And then you have the best kind of both worlds. And then eventually, if you do feel like you're really willing to make that jump, maybe give a call to a guy like Mr. P and have him walk you through the steps to get there. Mr. P, we've gotten there as well. That's the end of our episode here today. An interesting, fun dive into trader psychology. I'm sure you guys have suggestions for how you guys like to approach it. Maybe you take issue with my final bullet point there. Hit us up. Let us know. We do love to hear from you guys. And Mr. P, if folks want to reach out to us, maybe they want to reach out to you. And maybe they want help becoming a pro trader. Maybe they just want more discussions on trader psychology. Where should they go? What should they do?
Yeah, I mean, anybody who is looking to get to that level, if you're seriously looking to get to that level, and you know you're capitalized, and you know you're like so close to there, but you want to try and make it happen. I mean, hey man, for the folks who are our regular listeners, I just give you my email address, dan@markettaker.com. Market, like stock market, taker, like take something off the table, 2 T's in a row. And if it seems to be a good fit, like I'd be happy to just talk with you a little bit. And if it is, great. And if it isn't, then it'll be great to meet you anyway.
There you go. MarketTaker2Ts.com is the place to go. And on behalf of Mr. P and indeed myself, I thank all of you out there for downloading, streaming, subscribing. And we'll see you back here next time for more Options Bootcamp.
You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptions.com. optionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions@theoptionsinsider.com.